I hate it when people call the Bible the goat herder's guide to the galaxy. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a critic of the Bible and religion. I understand the appeal of comparing the Bible to a sci-fi comedy like The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But I think this fails because it's both inaccurate and also accurate for all the wrong reasons. This is not a religious channel, but it's not a religious channel. The first problem with calling the Bible the Goat Herder's Guide to the Galaxy is that it presupposes the Bible's internal authorship claims. Whether the critics are trying to or not, this assumes an in-universe position. We need to abandon critical frameworks that still presuppose the religious text claims, or we lose the battle because then we're fighting it on the terrain of the believer's thought world. It doesn't really do anything except come across like a thought-terminating cliché. We need to understand that while parts of the Bible may depict primitive cultures, those were neither its authors nor its audience. Just like the Odyssey was written about 400 years after the mythological setting of the Trojan War, the Bible was written later than the periods it alleges to depict. There was no historical Moses writing about an exodus while he wandered in the desert. The Gospels were written after the fall of Jerusalem, depicting a thought world populated with angels, demons, leprosy, and magic. But even when we acknowledge that reality, we often still fall into the trap of imagining a book's authors just as primitive as its setting. I need you to stop thinking of the Sunday school version of Bible times that you've been taught, with dirty mud brick houses and Bedouin tents. The people who actually wrote the Bible were more likely sophisticated social elites who probably enjoyed luxurious lifestyles you can't even imagine. They probably lived in houses that were nicer than yours. They may not have had electricity, but perhaps they even had running water. We also need to appreciate that the civilization before the fall of the Roman Empire was more advanced than what came after. This was a civilization that was able to calculate the circumference of the Earth with remarkable accuracy even without modern technology. We probably can't grasp how far civilization was set back by the Dark Ages, and how the Renaissance was merely recovering this lost progress. We want to think that by simply having access to the accumulated knowledge of human history, that people today are more sophisticated than people in antiquity. But that just isn't true. Despite all our advantages, there are probably more flat earthers today than any other point in history. Even uneducated goat herders were stargazers who had more awareness about astronomy than some people today. They may not have known the science behind the stars, but people today should know yet still follow horoscopes. The problem with the religions today are not because they are old. Buddhism is an example of an ancient religion that is capable of existing as a self-improvement philosophy without opposing science or promoting bigotry. Christianity's problems are modern, and they need modern solutions. Literal six-day interpretations of the creation story were not prevalent in church history prior to the era of modern science. Believers in antiquity were capable of understanding that folk ideologies about where rainbows or languages came from weren't literal facts. They were probably more likely to understand that prophecy was an ex eventu genre describing things that had already happened. When we try to cast the ancients as ignorant goat herders, we're really projecting our own modern ignorance into the past. So in what way is it correct to call the Bible the Goat Herder's Guide to the Galaxy? Just like a sci-fi novel, ancient narratives used the fantastic devices that were available at the time to advance the plot. If the genre of science fiction had existed back then, they could have just as easily used that instead to tell the same stories. And if you liked it, please help me out by liking this video and subscribing if you want to see more like it.